Hello and welcome to the Christian Therapist Podcast. Lindsay Castleman here.
I'm Aaron Strong.
And we are excited because we're continuing our Theology of series. And Aaron, man, we have been through, I'm losing count, honestly. We've been through the theology of submission, of suffering,
Emotion.
emotion, yes, all the different things. And just to keep the train going, today we are talking another theology, but
Yeah,
this time it's more of the theology of transformation versus legalism.
that's right.
And
Yep.
so it's not necessarily going into one, it's going into more what each are and how they're not the same,
Yep.
right?
It's just so important when we're talking about a Christian therapist podcast, kind of what are these elements of faith that are significant, especially to the therapy room. We
Hmm.
have clients of faith that come in, they'll bring certain issues or church experiences or just their personal experiences that don't really quite understand how God sees it.
Hmm.
Um, and we're not trying to we don't talk about denominations. We're not talking about anything of those things. It's not what we're talking about. But we simply talk about kind of what's God's perspective on these things based on your and I's understanding of Scripture. And here's how it plays out in a therapy room. And so this
Yes.
whole like transformation is so like that's what we're
Mhm.
doing in a therapy room, right? We're trying to help
Right.
things transform. But we see so often either coming out of churches that can be very legalistic. Sometimes you get that in couple relationships where partners like super legalistic,
Hmm.
right and wrong, or methods or how it's supposed to work or whatever. And so I don't know. And I think in our theology series, it was just one of those natural extensions of something to talk about.
Oh, I love it. And really and truly, in the counseling room, we find this place of legalism as a block, right? It's
Mhm.
a block to connection, it's a block to transformation, and it's a block really to knowing yourself and knowing others. But we do need to first break down legalism,
Yes.
in what it is and how does it start to show up in the therapy room, right? So, Aaron, if you were to kind of say a little bit about what is legalism, like how would you define it?
Yeah. And I think it's so important because legalism is not only a block in the therapy room, it's a block in our relationship with Christ too. Uh,
100%.
block on both sides. Legalism is a methodology of how to be right. What makes you right, right? Scripture calls it righteousness, which is the state of being right, like right standing. So legalism is this perspective that if you can follow the law, if you follow all the things that you're supposed to do, then the doing of things makes you right.
Hmm.
And that's, never quite feels good to the
No.
other person because
No.
I did all the right things
Yes.
is
Yes.
kind of the defense.
100%. And yeah, moving into I did all the right things. Sometimes there's also a mentality that goes, and now X, Y, and Z should then happen.
That's
And
right.
then we get frustrated when X, Y, and Z is not happening, when
That's right.
other people aren't showing up the way we think they should show up because of this. And honestly, too, when suffering starts to show up, we don't know how to be with people in it beyond more of a prescription of what you should do that would then produce you getting out of the suffering. Which,
Hmm.
if you go back to listen to our Theology of Suffering podcast, in a nutshell, we're not suffering because of like that's not always correlated.
Hmm.
Like suffering is inevitable. It will happen.
Hmm.
And we want to be able to learn how to be with each other in the suffering. But, Aaron, for me, like when I see, because, we see a lot of couples and we can see the legalism start to show up in couple dynamics or parent-child dynamics, which really is, man, if I have my kid move in this way, if I can get my spouse to show up in this way, then everything will be okay for me. And then what we end up doing is we end up missing the heart of the other.
Yeah. I liked how you were just talking about suffering
Mhm.
too, because really the path of legalism kind of promises that you can skip suffering, right? If you just do what was
Right.
right, you wouldn't be punished. And that's
Correct.
kind of what we tell our kids. Like, if you just do what's right, you wouldn't have any consequences. Just do what's right. Just do the right thing. Like, we can skip all of the pain if you just do what's right.
Hmm.
But that sense of, and especially in couple relationships, that perspective of, I did everything right, so you're supposed to do everything right. And if I did this, then you're supposed to do that. That's how I know I can get what I need or what I want. And that's, kind of a quick jump over there to a prosperity gospel that says if you do
Hmm.
what's right, then good things are coming to you. And
Yes.
there's like a reap what you sow principle that's true.
Hmm.
But uh, this idea of doing what's right and following the law as what justifies you and makes you right
Hmm.
is not correct.
No. Well, and even our community group, so we're moving through Ephesians. And last night we were getting together and talking about Ephesians 6, and a lot of Ephesians 6 is talking about putting on the armor of God.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things where it's like, first of all, you put the armor of God on before the battle happens, and so like you don't put it on while it's happening, you put it on before it's happening to get yourself ready, knowing as a Christian, and that's really what Paul's kind of ending and letting the church of Ephesus know. Like he's kind of like, hey, first part of Ephesians, really here is kind of like the way that we interact with God. Here's why we interact with God in this way. But then also knowing that now that you're moving into this new way of being, evil will come. Because
Mhm.
it's even talking about like our battle is not with flesh and blood. It's the principalities, it's against all these dark places, dark powers. Um, they're coming for you because you are starting to live in a more transformed state. And
Mhm.
so put on that armor, be ready because the battle will come. And a lot of the battle is just interesting because it has to do, going into transformation, it has to do a lot with holding fast to truth.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with um, righteousness and even just the word of the Lord. Like being able to be transformed in these ways help you when you start to move into the suffering that will happen, the battle that's guaranteed to show up when you start to say, I'm a believer.
Mhm.
And the sad thing is that a lot of times we can find those battles can even be with other believers who've fallen into the legalism trap because the legalism trap now measures so much based on performance and not the heart
Yep.
that as we look at the performance, we can start to judge, we can start to separate ourselves from it. And my gosh, the amount just the amount that if we really sit and look at our lives that we have to be grateful but also sit back and notice like we're just only a few choices away from you know like it's not within our power. It's not
Right.
us. um I know I'm talking a lot, but there's a story that came up. I'll just keep going, Aaron. I'm sorry. There is a story that came up that Tim Keller shared in Ephesians, but it just had to do with a Holocaust survivor coming into um, kind of this room where they were putting this Nazi kind of like on trial, and this Holocaust survivor came in, and the second he stepped in and he saw kind of this one that really tortured him, um, just started sobbing. And when the interviewer asked him, what made you sob? It was essentially because he looked and he was like standing in front of me, was not a monster, like it was a human. And like he said, he was overcome with the realization of the depths in which he could go,
Mhm.
you know? And so like there's a place where when we start to really and truly understand like the depths of our depravity,
Right?
legalism just starts to not make so much sense.
Yep. Legalism, like in those analogies you're providing, that invites us to live on the surface.
Hmm.
It lives on the surface. It doesn't go to the heart. So kind of
Right.
like if I think about the armor, perspective from Ephesians, legalism wants everyone to stand around and admire how shiny their armor is,
Hmm.
right? Look how ornate it is. Look how, ooh, I found this. This is my favorite translation of the armor that I wear. And look at my tassels and look how
Sure.
polished it is and how perfect it looks. And 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 legalism invites that kind of external perspective
Right.
versus an actual soldier doesn't have shiny armor, right? It's dented,
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
worn, it's used, it's
Yes.
it's been scuffed and scraped, and you can try to polish it up, but clearly that's an armor in use versus someone who just walks around wearing armor.
Hmm.
Uh, we can look like a soldier or we could be a soldier, and
Yes.
armor isn't what defines the difference. So even when Jesus talked to the Pharisees or the teachers of the law, he called them whitewashed tombs, which is this external thing that's been painted and is pretty and is very attractive and
Mm-hmm.
invites regard. But he says inside you're just bones. Like
Right.
inside there's death.
Right.
And so even Jesus called out this perspective of, righteousness isn't how you look, and it's not just what you do. Look at this Pharisee praying in the streets with his hands up in the air really loud so everyone can see him pray. And look at this guy in the corner who's just weeping and recognizing the depths of his depravity in the soul of his heart. And Jesus is like, that's the guy you want to aspire to because there's this internal transformation. And so legalism really invites us into this easier path of following Jesus. It's this easier path of relationship where I don't have to look inside myself. I don't have to see how broken I am. I can simply esteem myself by my behaviors and disconnect from anything that falls short because everything else looks so good. I do everything else.
Hmm.
Uh, like that rich young ruler who's like, "Hey, I followed all the law. I've checked all the boxes, and what else do I have to do to be perfect? What do I have to be to uh,
Right.
follow you?" And he's like, "Go sell everything and follow me." And he's like, "Well, I want to do that. What I mean? Go sell all your armor and all your protections and stuff, and then let me see what you've got left to follow me with." And like, well, can we pick an easier path? Like, is there one that
Right. No,
I
thank
can?
you. Yeah.
Anything else I can just polish up a little bit better? That'd be
Hmm.
better.
Hmm.
Than
Or
this.
even like give me a different task,
Yeah, right.
you
Go
know?
witness to somebody. I'll go tell them stuff. It's fine, but don't make me
Hmm.
be different.
Yeah.
Uh, the inside stuff is hard.
Oh, for
It's
sure.
nothing.
For sure. Well, and Aaron, even too, I think it would be helpful to talk about how that can look in the counseling room. You know,
Sure.
like the where as we sit back, we can have the the parents that are going, well, kids, you must honor me. I've I can remember that, before of just going, my kids, they need to honor and obey me, right? Like it's about the performance piece. But at the same time, my wondering, my nudging was, I wonder what it would be like for you to be curious as to what would hold them back from honoring you, right?
Hmm.
So it's a little bit of we have to leave our high horse to say, this must come to me, and say, how can I now go to my kid and know their heart and know what could be happening where they're not wanting to come be around me. They're not wanting, and these are grown-ups, like they were adult children, but and
Yeah,
it's the same either way, but
for
just the
sure.
place of how come they don't want to call you,
Right.
and also it is a two-way street. You can call them. Um, but there's just those places of going, what instead of expecting a certain behavior, you know.
Mhm.
And that's, I think, what it can look like a lot of times is showing up like expecting this kind of behavior out of people around them and being
Mhm.
really upset when that behavior is not being met in that way. And so then wanting to apply even more of like, this is what you should be doing
Mhm.
versus leaning into the resistance as to what's keeping your kiddos, your spouse, your whatever from wanting to come close, from wanting to listen, from wanting to show up in this way.
Yep. That sense of like, are you wanting
Mm,
compliance or are you wanting them to be someone who would whatever?
right.
Right? In that difference. And I think it's hard because we can find plenty of scriptures to justify compliance, right? Jesus
Hmm.
is like, if you love me, you'll obey my commands. Well, that's pretty easy, right? James
Hmm.
is like, faith without works is dead. You got to do the thing. And
Hmm.
so we're like, okay, so then when we feel offended, when we feel disrespected, when we see distress in the other one, and I don't like how it's treating me, then I want compliance.
Hmm.
Don't question what I said. Just
Hmm.
do what I say, right?
Yes.
Just give me the compliance because I don't have time. It's too stressful. It's too disruptive. I don't have the patience or the capacity to figure out what's going on in you. Just do what I told you to.
Hmm.
And every parent on the planet had those moments. We all do
Yes.
that at
Sure.
times. We're like,
Sure.
oh, right? We hit the end of our capacity. But, we really want our kids to become someone, then that's a whole different issue of like, what's the barrier to obedience? Like, what
Hmm.
happens? There's a part of me that likes to read that statement when Jesus says, if you love me, you'll obey my commands, to almost when you love me, you'll want to obey my commands because you want to honor the one you love,
Right.
not just do things for yourself.
Yes.
So, how do we help clients in any area of their life contend with the parts of them that act out, that disconnect, that avoid difficulty or distress, to make other people responsible for our emotional well-being through forcing compliance or claiming our own righteousness that we check the box, or just
Hmm.
complaining that they won't do all the right things and make ourselves like we're the picture perfect of what everything's supposed to be. Like part of our job is helping people contend with the parts of us that are broken, and what do
Right.
we do with it to become someone that we want to be, that we're designed to be, that we're called to be. And that is a really difficult, painful process.
Hmm.
It's just easier to check a box. It's easier. Just tell me what to do. Like, then do all of that internal sorting and assessment. I don't
Right.
like those parts of me. I don't like those parts of you. Let's just skip the whole thing. But like I just told you, we were talking before, I just read Galatians.
Hmm.
And the whole point of the law was not so you could do it, it's to prove that you can't.
Right.
It was
Right.
to prove we're not good enough, but we all like act like that's what it's there for, is to make us good enough.
Right.
But it always needed a sacrifice to cover sin. It always needed a savior to come cover the gaps. Like
Right.
we
Right.
can't recognize our propensity to gaps, then we miss the entire point of the law.
For sure. Right. And yeah, if we're still measuring like our closeness or perceived closeness to God, um, based on, how well we follow the law, then we are missing him entirely. And there's a sadness to that because that's also what we will see even within couples, within that kind of relationship, when that thinking, when more of the legalistic thinking, or it could be more of the performance kind of thinking shows up. And really it's a performance, it's a legalism that's almost like self-protective
Hmm.
because, we're showing up saying, well, I'm doing all these things for you that should be the things that people like. Why aren't you liking it? How come,
Right.
like, why is it such a moving target? You know,
Yep.
you say you want flowers, and then I send you flowers, but the flowers aren't the right kind, they're the, or whatever, that it can start to feel crazy making, you know. But usually the protest of the other is it's not that you do these things and check these things off the list. It's that I know that you're considering me, that you're holding me in my heart, in your heart, what you know about me, who I am, um, maybe how we're doing. Like
Mhm.
it's like a tuned in place. And out of that overflow, there is this behavior.
Yep.
And that's what you're saying too, Aaron, that really it's what God is saying. When you love me, man, out of this overflow of love, you want to do these things for me,
Mhm.
and it's not it doesn't feel like a burden. It feels like, it feels like a privilege
That's right.
in that way. And so that's usually the protest that we tell people is like, it's not that you're doing things wrong, it's that they don't feel your heart in it when you're
Yeah, because
doing
you
it.
gave a behavior, not you. There's
Correct.
no you in what you did. I
Mm-hmm.
bought you flowers. I did the dishes. I picked up
Mm-hmm.
the kids. Helped clean the house.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did the things.
Right.
Like why doesn't it count?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no you. You're doing the
Mm-hmm.
things. There's no you there. There's no presence in that
Right.
sense. There's one thing if you just do a thing to get me off your back. It's a different thing that your heart is towards me. You care about me. You want to. You're looking for ways to show up so that we can connect. So the behavior is an evidence of something already present,
Mm-hmm.
not the like here I gave you the thing you asked for. So now I'm alleviated of any of my obligations because I did the thing you said. Here you go. I'm now free, hands off.
Right.
Uh, that's not what God wants. It's not what spouses want. It's not what kids want or parents want. It's like not what we want.
No. And there can be compassion for those that fall into that category because there are a lot. There are a lot of people that fall into that category, especially within the coupleship. And, we can start to even walk it back or trace it back and go, that can be in some families how you stay in good favor with your
Hmm.
caregivers is
Yep.
if I show up in a way that's pleasing to them, then I can stay in good favor. How I feel about it, who I am, doesn't matter. But if I show up doing the right things, then I get the accolades, I get the attaboys. And so now I'm in a marriage and I'm not getting the accolades, I'm not getting the attaboys. This is confusing,
Yeah.
you know.
And it's hard to move to deep places when people haven't taken you there,
Sure.
right? When you grow up and performance is the baseline of connection, then that's just what you think how it works. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you just don't know a difference. And you're like, but I don't understand. That's what I heard in church, and that's what my parents did, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what I was required to do as a kid. Like, I don't understand what you're even asking about. Like, what is
Right.
this other path?
Right.
Uh, and so we want to just be dismissive to people who've grown up in a more legalistic perspective, either at home or in churches or at work or wherever, because there's reasons why we can get pushed into that environment. But that deeper sense of connection, that deeper sense of presence, that God wants with us, that with Emmanuel, God with us, like He's
Mm-hmm.
tangibly connected to our hearts, his process of helping him for us to become like Christ and our growing in maturity and faith to Christ likeness. And we're trying
Mm-hmm.
to not just take on his behaviors, but take on the way he loves, take on the character that sees others through his lens. Like that's an internal transformation. You can't just check a box about. It's about who we are becoming,
Mm-hmm.
far more than what we're doing. What we do flows out of our being, right? if I check a box, I tell clients all the time, it's really hard because you can do the same behavior for two very different reasons, and one will have credit and one won't.
Right.
I can do it. I can check. You're like, well, you said do this. I did it for you. So there's your gift and be happy with it. And why are you complaining?
Yeah.
Or I can do something because of my heart shifted and I care about you and I'm looking for ways to serve and care about you. So I do it as an example or as an expression, not as the sole focus, right? And so flowing out of this being they can have the same behaviors.
Yes.
The internal posture can be vastly different. And it makes me think of like Jesus's parable of the sheep and the goats,
Hmm.
right? Where they're like, but we did all these things for you. And he's like, you didn't know my character. You didn't do it the way I would do it. You didn't do it when I was naked or when I was lonely or when I was sick or when I was in jail. You
Hmm.
didn't go do it in the hidden places. It wasn't your heart to want to come alongside. You
Right.
just performed for me. I don't know. Like, that's not who I am. I don't know that. That's not
Hmm.
who I am. But the rest of you, that you got my heart. You became like my heart. We shared a heart. And because they're so close, they didn't even realize they did it. Like we did that. We saw you when you were sick. We clothed you when we did that. Like that's in the parable. And he's like, yeah,
Hmm.
you did. They're like, oh, okay. It wasn't even work. Just
Sure.
it
Sure.
wanted to.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. And that's the hard thing is like to try to help people know who don't know this, it is actually easier.
right.
Like doing the checklist, do like trying to do all the performance, doing the things is harder
Yes.
and
I
more
think there's a
exhausting.
Yeah, I think there's a trade-off on
Mhm.
on where the hardness occurs. Like when we talk about suffering, there's like, I tell clients sometimes, there's no path of no suffering. You just get to pick
Correct.
which
Yeah.
suffering you'd like, right? So
Correct.
often in life, that's the case, right? There's everything is a path of suffering. Just what suffering do you want? And it's kind of like finances, this path of
Mhm.
legalism versus transformation, where legalism is like a credit card. You get something easy up front and it's more
Yeah.
expensive later. It's
Yeah.
easy up front to just check the box at the cost of everything you actually and they actually really want. And then
Hmm.
it never feels like long term, it never feels good. It never resolves. It never eases. It's always tension. There's always effort. It's always all this work. But on the front end, it's just easier to go check the box. Like, fine, I just did the thing.
Right.
Versus transformation takes so much more on the front end of evaluating my heart and learning to lean
Hmm.
into Jesus and studying His Word and understanding not both what happens within me and what happens between us. And where's my role to own myself and where's my role to put myself aside and show up for you and to
Right.
coordinate. That's hard on the front end, but as that becomes instinctive and natural, the way that
Hmm.
you do, then you don't even think about it. It's
Right.
just right, move, you just move, and then
Yeah.
all of that goodness follows. We
Yeah.
still get lost, but when you get lost, you're like, this sucks. You just want to get back to good as fast as you can. And you're just not
Correct.
stuck over there. And so you just got to pick like where you want to pay the pain. You want to pay cash or you want to pay a credit card? Like,
Right. Right. And looking at the behavior, legalism is going to look at the behavior as this place of, man, we've got to transform the behavior. We got to do better. We got to do different. We got to
right,
whatever, which like that's kind of that work you're talking about. But transformation is saying, no, 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 we need to look at the behavior and walk it back
yeah,
to what's happening in the heart or not happening in the heart and start to transform that.
right.
So, Aron, here's what I propose. I propose that we start our next podcast on really the ways that we can start to walk from behavior into heart transformation.
I like
So
that.
that way we can give more practicals on what can transformation look like,
Right.
especially those again where we've not ever been invited into that.
Right. Yep. I love that because
Mm.
understanding it's one thing to it's interesting to know the difference between them, but moving from doing to being, like that's the secret to the whole thing.
Right.
So I
Right.
would that sounds like a great extension of this conversation for sure.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. Well, thank you, Aron, and we'll see you again in part two.
All right, see you there.